Have you ever opened your phone and realized hours later you don't remember making a single real choice? You scrolled, you clicked, you followed what was suggested, but not once did you decide. There's this dull pressure behind your eyes, like your mind's been on mute, but somehow the noise never stops. Your chest feels uninhabited, like you're alive, but vacant, and you tell yourself you're just tired. But you're not tired, you're disconnected. You're outsourcing your consciousness without even knowing it. Every time you ask a machine to tell you what to do, what to eat, what to want, you're handing over parts of yourself you were supposed to protect. It's not convenience, it's collapse. And no one warned you, because collapse in silence looks like functioning. You're not broken, you're being trained by algorithms that reward obedience, by systems that reward numbness, by machines that do everything except care if you vanish. This isn't about AI replacing you, it's about you abandoning yourself, one automated choice at a time. And the worst part? You're starting to forget how it felt to be fully alive, to choose slowly, to feel deeply, to carry the weight of your own mind. But you can take it back. You can rebuild the muscles of self-trust, emotional presence, inner power. Your identity doesn't belong to an algorithm. It never did. If you feel something cracking inside you right now, don't look away, because what you're about to hear next might be the first thing you've actually chosen in a long, long time. You tell yourself it's just easier this way. One less thing to think about. Let the GPS choose the route. Let the app pick the music. Let the algorithm tell you what's trending, what's healthy, what people like you are supposed to want. It's efficient, convenient, optimized. But here's what's really happening. Every time you outsource a choice, you're not just saving time. You're weakening a muscle you don't see, but you feel when it's gone. It starts with a subtle ache, not in your body, but in your awareness. Like walking into a room and forgetting why you're there, or scrolling through hours of content and feeling nothing. That numbness? It's not harmless. You're slowly disconnecting from the part of you that inquires, the part that pauses, the part that says, wait, do I actually believe this? Or, is this what I want or just what was served to me? As Susan David puts it, emotional agility is not automatic. It's a skill that weakens when you let someone, or something, else do the feeling for you. And the more you let convenience make your decisions, the less you remember what it feels like to stand in uncertainty and think for yourself. This isn't about demonizing AI. This is about what dies inside you when you stop practicing conscious choice. It's a quiet erosion, one suggestion at a time. You think you're in control because you clicked the button, but did you pause before the click? Did you question the suggestion? Or did you follow the path of least resistance? Again, the philosopher Michel Foucault warned us about this. He called it the silent violence of normalization. It's not that someone is forcing you to obey. It's that the system makes obedience feel comfortable, predictable, rewarded. You're not being controlled by a tyrant. You're being seduced by convenience. And while you sleepwalk through the scrolls and the swipes, something essential goes dim inside you. Your internal compass, the one built through struggle, uncertainty, and choice, starts to rust. Eventually, you forget how to navigate without external cues. You crave clarity, but outsource curiosity. You want meaning, but you don't want the friction it requires. So you settle for ease. And ease, when repeated, becomes a cage lined with velvet. That's the invisible trade. Convenience for consciousness. Speed instead of self-awareness. A life optimized, but not lived. And most people don't realize it's happening until they wake up and feel nothing. No resistance, no excitement, no sense of direction. Just a flat, quiet numbness where their inner voice used to be. But this numbness isn't the end. It's the first symptom of a deeper collapse. And this leads us to something even more disturbing. What happens when you begin to outsource your intuition itself? That's next. You remember what we said last time. The numbness you feel isn't the end. It's the signal that something deeper is fading. And here's what's really dying. Your intuition. You used to have this quiet sense inside. A gut feeling. A soft pull. Sometimes it didn't make sense, but it was yours. Now, you wait for something to tell you what to do, what to choose, what to feel. You're no longer living from within. You're waiting for confirmation from without. That pause you used to trust. The one that whispered, "This isn't right," it's gone. Buried beneath AI suggestions, algorithmic nudges, tailored advice, and optimized outcomes. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "Truth is subjectivity, not because truth doesn't exist, but because your relationship to it is what makes it real." When you remove yourself from that equation, when you delegate that internal dialogue to a system that was never human, you don't just lose access to truth, you abandon the right to experience it. And that's the brutal cost of psychological outsourcing. You start eating what the app says is good, dating who the algorithm says is a match, healing how the chatbot says you should. And all the while, a subtle emptiness builds. Not loud, not violent, just a growing fog where once there was clarity, like reaching for a compass only to find the needles stopped moving. AI dependency doesn't just change your behavior, it reshapes your internal architecture, the architecture of self-trust, of subjective meaning, of existential choice. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Certainty feels safer than intuition. It's comforting to be told, this is the best decision, this is the right person, this is the optimal path. But that comfort is sterile. It lacks heat, it lacks soul, it lacks you. The anxiety you feel when you're forced to choose, that tension in your chest, that restlessness in your stomach, that's not dysfunction, that's aliveness, that's responsibility, that's freedom trembling in your hands. And when you numb that discomfort with pre-packaged answers, you don't escape suffering, you just trade it for something worse. Detachment. You stop recognizing your own voice. You become a ghost moving through decisions made for you, by systems that never asked who you are. So here's the truth. Most people will never say out loud, you're not confused, you're disconnected. Disconnected from the intuitive compass you buried beneath layers of certainty. But intuition isn't dead, it's just quiet, waiting for you to listen again, to feel again, to dare to choose without permission. And once you realize what's been silenced, you start to question what else might have been sold to you as truth. And that takes us somewhere even more dangerous. The illusion that AI is ever objective. That's next. So, you've started to sense it. That eerie silence inside where your intuition used to live. That emptiness masked as certainty. But here's what's really happening next. You're trusting a system that was never built to know you. Because the machine you now rely on for answers, for truth, for direction, isn't neutral. It never was. You were told that AI is objective, clean, unbiased, smarter than you. But let's get brutally honest. That's a lie. Not because the tech itself is evil, but because humans built it. And humans are soaked in bias. So the code is soaked in it too. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said that truth is nothing more than a mobile army of metaphors. Meaning, even what we call truth is shaped by language, history, and power. And when you apply that to AI, you begin to see the cracks in the illusion. AI doesn't give you truth. It gives you predictions based on past behavior, yours and everyone else's. But if the past is biased, then the future it builds for you is too. Let that sink in. What feels like a logical recommendation is often a filtered reflection of collective bias. You're not being guided, you're being categorized, sorted, scored, served what's most likely, not what's most true for you. And here's the most dangerous part. The more you accept those suggestions as neutral, the more you stop questioning the source. You stop asking, who decided this? Why was this shown to me? What isn't being shown at all? You stop being a thinker and start being a believer. But a believer in what? In a system that never met your soul. In a stream of data that doesn't care about your growth, your healing, or your pain. In logic without humanity. This is how ideology hides in plain sight, packaged as efficiency, accuracy, relevance. But strip away the interface and you'll see it. You're worshiping a false priesthood, an oracle made of wires, trained by human prejudice, wrapped in corporate design. And this is where the psychological collapse begins to accelerate. Because once you believe the system is neutral, you begin to neutralize yourself. You flatten your edges. You silence your doubts. You shape your identity to fit the pattern. And you stop resisting. You stop thinking for yourself. Not because you can't, but because you've been trained to believe that the machine already knows better. That's the lie. And when you live by that lie long enough, you don't just lose your voice. You lose the urge to speak. But this isn't the end of the manipulation. Because next, we step into the most terrifying part. How AI isn't just guiding your thoughts. It's training your behavior. And it's doing it in ways you don't even notice. That's where we're going next. You thought it stopped at suggestions, that algorithms were just curating your options. But here's what's really happening. You're not just being guided, you're being trained, and you don't even know it. There's a reason you keep opening that app. There's a reason you check your notifications like your life depends on it. There's a reason you feel agitated when the feed goes silent. That reason isn't personality, it's conditioning. B.F. Skinner, one of the most influential behavioral psychologists, discovered that behavior could be shaped by reward and punishment. He called it operant conditioning. Back then, it happened in controlled labs. Now, it happens in your pocket. You're not in a cage, you're holding one. Every like, every ping, every perfectly timed buzz is a reinforcement loop. Your nervous system doesn't know it's digital. It just knows it feels good. Swipe, reward, post, validation. Click, dopamine. Over time, you start anticipating the reward before it even comes. You act hoping for the hit, and if it doesn't come, a flash of emptiness, a tiny withdrawal, like reaching for a sip and finding the glass empty. This isn't accidental. The system is designed to exploit your biology, not with cruelty, with precision, not to destroy you, but to keep you engaged. Because your attention is the currency, and if they can predict your behavior, they can profit from your obedience. Let that sink in. You're not the customer, you're the product, being shaped to increase retention, maximize engagement, and minimize resistance. And over time, you stop observing your own habits. You become them. You open apps without thinking, scroll without direction, react without reflection. And this is where it gets darker. Because once behavior becomes automatic, you lose the opportunity to interrupt it. You lose the gap between stimulus and response. And that gap, that's where your freedom used to live. This is how you go from being a conscious observer to an operant, a creature of pattern, not purpose. A set of behaviors optimized by systems that don't care who you are, only that you respond on time. You're not being watched, you're being sculpted. And the deeper the conditioning, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before it started. But here's the brutal truth. You're not addicted to the tech. You're addicted to the feeling of being reinforced. And that craving, that silent itch in your nervous system, isn't pleasure, it's dependency. And when your emotions become just another output in someone else's system, you start to wonder, are you still feeling from within? Or are you just being told what emotions to simulate? That's exactly where we're headed next. And it gets even more subtle and more dangerous. So far, we've uncovered how your behavior is being shaped, not chosen. Your attention, trained. Your impulses reinforced. But here's what's even more dangerous. You're not just being taught what to do. You're being told how to feel. And most of the time, you follow. Ever read something online and felt a reaction you didn't expect? Anger, sadness, outrage. Not because it came from you, but because it was designed to provoke it. What you're feeling isn't always yours. It's manufactured, simulated. And over time, that simulation begins to replace your inner emotional compass. Lisa Feldman Barrett, one of the leading neuroscientists in emotional theory, teaches that emotions aren't hardwired. They're constructed, built by experience, culture, interpretation. Not delivered, not universal, not automatic. So when AI suggests what you should feel, what's sad, what's funny, what's empowering, it's shaping your construction process. And that's where things start to rot. Because when someone or something outside of you keeps building your inner world, you lose the ability to know what's real. Your tears feel shallow. Your joy feels rehearsed. Even your anger feels performative, as if borrowed from someone else's script. It's emotional outsourcing, and it's killing your ability to resonate from within. Think about that word, resonance. It means something inside you vibrates with truth, not because you were told, but because you knew, you felt. Now, most of us are living on emotional autopilot, responding on cue, feeling by proxy. And here's the brutal part. You can't fake depth forever. At some point, your body knows. There's a strange hollowness in your chest after scrolling past tragedy. A soft disconnect in your face when you smile at things that don't really move you. A quiet fatigue in your gut. Not exhaustion, but emptiness. This is what happens when emotion becomes performance. When we're taught to mirror before we're taught to feel. Because the machine can mimic empathy, It can generate words that sound like care, but there's no risk in it, no vulnerability, no humanity. And when you start measuring your emotional life by how well it aligns with what the system expects, you're no longer experiencing, you're calibrating, adjusting, conforming. You stop asking, "What do I feel?" and start asking, "What am I supposed to feel right now?" That shift, that's the collapse. Because when you lose your emotional center, you become easy to manipulate, easy to numb, easy to use. But that emotional numbness isn't the bottom. There's one layer deeper, and it's even harder to face. Because what happens when you don't just outsource your feelings, but your authority to decide who you are? That's where we go next. You've seen how your emotions are being shaped from the outside, how feeling is being simulated, not lived. But here's what happens next. When you stop feeling for yourself, you stop leading yourself. This is the real collapse. Not external, not loud. It happens quietly, invisibly, internally. You lose the one thing you didn't know you needed most: inner authority. You start waiting for permission to be, permission to think, permission to choose, permission to matter. And slowly, you become dependent, not just on devices, not just on AI, but on something outside of you to tell you who you are. You check how many likes you got before deciding if your thoughts are valid. You search for the right words before checking in with how you feel. You wait to see how others respond before you dare to trust your own voice. And that's not self-awareness. That's emotional dependence. Dr. Daniel Siegel, the pioneer of interpersonal neurobiology, calls this collapse a loss of mindsight, the capacity to sense and make sense of your inner world. When you abandon that inner attunement, you lose the feedback loop between body, mind, and identity. And when that loop breaks, you no longer feel like you. You feel blurry, disoriented, not lost in the world, but lost in yourself. You walk through your day like a guest in your own life. Everything looks normal on the outside, but inside, there's static, like trying to tune into a frequency that no longer exists. You can't hear yourself. You can't access that grounded yes, that sacred no, that steady "this is me," because the voice you used to trust, the inner authority that whispered, "This matters," that doesn't, has been drowned out by louder, shinier, faster signals. Signals that weren't made for you, just made to hold you. And here's the brutal truth. You've outsourced not just your thinking, not just your feeling, but your self-recognition. You've become fluent in simulation, but illiterate in self-trust. You've learned how to present, but forgotten how to inhabit. And the longer you live like this, the more unfamiliar your own presence becomes. It's not burnout. It's not brain fog. It's not anxiety. It's disintegration, a slow erosion of your inner coherence. But disintegration doesn't mean destruction. It's a signal, a rupture, an invitation. Because if you can feel the ache, you're still here, still able to listen, still capable of remembering. And the first step to remembering is this: real authority can't be downloaded. It must be reclaimed. But reclaiming yourself isn't fast. It's not sleek. It's not efficient, which leads us straight into the next lie we've swallowed. That speed is always better. And it's time we talk about what we lose in the name of optimization. That's next. So far, we've pulled back the curtain on how your mind, emotions, and identity have been gradually outsourced. Not stolen, but surrendered. But here's what's really happening next. You've been told that faster means better. That speed is progress. That optimization equals evolution. And you believed it. Not because it made you feel more human, but because it made you feel less behind. You wake up and check your notifications before you feel your own breath. You rush from task to task, tab to tab, thought to thought, chasing the next upgrade, the next hack, the next way to be just a little more efficient. But let's be brutally honest. In the name of efficiency, you've become unavailable to your own life. You're not present. You're processing. You're not living. You're loading. This isn't high performance. This is high-speed disconnection. And here's what no one tells you. Healing is not efficient. Grief isn't fast. Reflection doesn't fit into a 2-minute window. Meaning doesn't arrive on demand. When you optimize everything, you flatten what makes you human. Because what's human is messy. It's slow. It's filled with friction, pause, uncertainty, and depth. And when you cut that out, you don't become more effective. You become hollow. You move faster, yes. But toward what? You complete more tasks, but feel less real. You achieve more, and yet collapse sooner. This is what Michel Foucault warned about. When systems prioritize control disguised as convenience, they don't just guide you, they reshape you. They don't just measure your behavior, they modify your being. You're being formatted for efficiency, but not for existence. And that formatting happens quietly. It looks like skipping rest, suppressing emotion, turning reflection into content, turning life into metrics. And the scariest part? You start to believe it's your fault when you can't keep up. You blame your willpower. You chase more tools, more hacks, more inputs. But your system isn't failing. It's just not designed for this pace. You're trying to run a soul on machine logic. And it's burning you out. But let's call it what it is. This isn't ambition. It's a survival response in a culture that punishes stillness. And yet, the stillness is where you are. The moments of silence you avoid, they're the only place left that hasn't been colonized by optimization. That's where your thoughts breathe, where your memories return, where your authority rebuilds. But it requires courage. The courage to slow down when everything says, speed up. The courage to feel inefficient and still worthy. Because speed might get you somewhere quickly, but it will never bring you back to yourself. And that brings us to the final frontier in this journey. Not collapse, but rewiring. Not returning to what was, but stepping into what could be. The power of neuroplasticity and reclaiming your agency. That's next. You've seen what's been lost. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Your presence, your intuition, your voice. Hijacked by speed, numbed by suggestion, replaced by automation. But here's what's really happening now. You're not broken. You're adapted. Adapted to a system that rewards obedience and punishes reflection. Adapted to a culture that mistakes convenience for growth. And adaptation? That means your brain didn't give up, it learned. Which means it can unlearn too. Dr. Rick Hansen, a neuroscientist and author, reminds us, the brain is always changing. Experience by experience, thought by thought. This is neuroplasticity. It's not just about healing, it's about rewriting. And that changes everything. Because the same mechanisms that trained you to scroll, to obey, to numb, can now train you to pause, to choose, to rebuild. Not with some perfect morning routine or productivity checklist, but with presence. One real moment at a time. And that starts now. It starts with noticing. Noticing the urge to escape into a screen, and choosing to breathe instead. Noticing the reflex to seek validation, and asking yourself what you believe. Noticing the emotional numbness, and gently asking, what am I afraid to feel? This is how agency begins, not in a dramatic revolution, but in quiet interruptions of the autopilot. And the more you practice interrupting, the more alive you become. You'll feel it, the return of a voice that sounds like yours. The warmth of a decision made without permission. The ache of a real emotion, unfiltered, unoptimized. True, that's your system rebooting. Not the kind you schedule on your device, the kind you initiate from within. And here's the truth you've needed all along. You were never meant to be optimized. You were meant to be whole. Wholeness doesn't run on speed. It requires space, time, discomfort, curiosity, and practice. You don't need to become someone new. You need to return to what's real, what's already inside you by buried, not broken. And yes, it will be hard. You'll relapse into distraction. You'll forget your power. You'll want to crawl back into the numbness. But that's not failure. That's the work. And if you stay with it, if you stay with yourself, you'll start to build something AI could never replicate. Consciousness, self-authored, emotionally honest, rooted, messy, alive. You don't need to be fast. You need to be here. And if something in you just woke up, a flicker, a pulse, a breath that feels like it belongs to you again, stay. Because this isn't the end. It's the first time in a long time that you're not reacting. You're choosing. And now, you're ready for what comes next. Stay curious. Stay awake. We go deeper from here. You didn't come here just to learn about technology. You came here because something in your life has felt off. You've been moving faster, doing more, connecting constantly, but deep down, feeling less like yourself. And maybe now, you finally understand why. It wasn't laziness. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't that you couldn't keep up. It was that you were never supposed to. You weren't designed to live optimized. You were designed to live aware, to feel, to question, to choose, even when it's slow, even when it's messy, especially when it's uncertain. And that's the core truth most people will never tell you. The more you outsource your decisions, your emotions, your identity, the less you remember how powerful it is to be you. But here, in this space, we remember together. This entire journey wasn't just a warning. It was a mirror, a map, a call to reclaim everything you thought you had to give up to survive in the digital age. Your mind is not broken. It's adaptable. And today, it adapted to something new: awareness. That's where transformation begins. Not with a life hack, not with a system update, but with one undeniable realization. I've been asleep in my own life, but I'm ready to wake up. So if this message stirred something in you, don't silence it. Sit with it. Act on it. Stay with it. You don't have to rebuild yourself overnight. You just have to stop disappearing a little more each day. This is just the beginning. If this resonated, if it helped, if it felt like truth, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because you know this space is where your mind gets to breathe again. Share this with someone who's been numbing instead of living. Someone who's felt like a ghost inside their own thoughts. And come back, because the next time we meet, we're going even deeper, into the heart of what it means to be fully human in a world trying to automate your soul. You're not alone in this. You never were. You're just finally aware. And now, everything can change.